All right, so let's get started. This is the bi-weekly meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. Today is March 16, and as a reminder, this meeting is public and recorded. Let's get started. So first on the agenda is status updates. I'm going to go ahead and open up the planning doc, and we can review items very quickly.
Hey folks, if you're not speaking, can you go on mute?
Okay, so we have 1 week left until the 1.6 release is scheduled to be cut. These are the features that we've been tracking for the Kubernetes storage side of things. And in fact, there is a second spreadsheet which tracks all the features that are supposed to be in 1.6. Might be worthwhile just to focus on that. So if we go scroll down here to the storage section. I think there were only a couple of features that had outstanding docs. All the features here had their code already checked in. Let's take a look.
Hey, Saad, do you have the control to mute others?
Yeah, let me take a look at that.
Thanks.
Okay, that should be better. All right, so it looks like only this feature does not have its docs in, and that's the Flex Volume plugin. Chakri, are you on the line?
Hi, Saad. Yeah, I'm working on it. Mostly you should see it by end of today or tomorrow morning.
Okay, cool. So I think they want to get the PRs in as soon as possible. They want to have them merged by Monday at the latest.
Oh, okay. I'll shoot for today and mostly.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think looks like everybody else has their docs in, and we're looking good. All right, thank you for working on that, folks. I think we're good for 1.6. Otherwise, bug count looked low last I checked. Let me take a quick glance at it. 1.6 milestone. Label storage SIG. We don't have any open bugs. So there we go. We're good from the storage side for the 1.6 release, other than that open doc, and that should be resolved today. All right, moving on to the next item. Design reviews. We have an item added by Tamil. Tamil, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Floor is yours. Take it away.
Yeah, so basically the issue that I'm sort of dealing with is we are running Kubernetes cluster on like DigitalOcean or Linode, this kind of simple VPS providers, and they only have like most of their VMs only have like a single primary partition, and there is no option to add any secondary disks. So today like if you want to install a database server like Postgres or MySQL via stateful set, the problem is that you cannot really use it. I mean, the only option you have is basically using something like a host path. The issue is that the host path provisioner, there is no host path dynamic host path provisioner, and actually I think the scheduler doesn't have enough information to like ensure that if the pod restarts or the node restarts, the host path, the pod gets scheduled back to the same pod because there is no pod node level. I guess my point is like, how do we like make this work, or like what are the options we have?
So host path has was never intended to be used for production systems. It's more for testing than anything else. It's unsafe. It basically breaks a lot of Kubernetes paradigms. It doesn't if you start writing things to a local disk, Kubernetes doesn't do anything to ensure that your pod, when it gets rescheduled, comes back to the same machine. This problem space we're calling local storage in general. There could be persistent local storage or ephemeral local storage. And Michelle from our side has been driving an effort to make local storage work. Michelle, do you have any comments on this?
Hi. Yeah. So, Tamal, I haven't taken a look at your proposal, so I'm not really sure exactly what it's doing. But I think so. We've been discussing on the Vish, I and Tamal have been discussing on our PR about this issue. So we can continue discussing if we want. But basically. Vish is suggesting that as part of our proposal to add a new local PV object, that we also allow you to specify directories instead of partitions to, and allow for this kind of use case. I guess I still have some reservations about that, mainly because that usage is going to have a lot of the same issues as host path in terms of not being able to do capacity enforcement. Sorry, but I think we can try to see. We can see if we can work something out there.
Yeah, I mean, so the way we are looking at this is basically if like people were using something like a DigitalOcean or things like that, without like Kubernetes, they can actually go and install like a database server and maybe like an Nginx and start their application. But the moment if you want to do the same thing with Kubernetes, it's just not possible. So I think so.
It is possible. I just want to frame it right. So what you're saying is there's a limitation in the persistent volume framework.
Right.
But there's no limitation in the volume plugin framework. So what basically, to summarize, you can only claim network disks or network shared file systems. You can't claim local disks. So that's Michelle's proposal, to be able to claim local disks and advertise them as persistent volumes. What you can do in the workaround today, it's grpsee a little bit, and it makes your Kubernetes nodes pets rather than cattle. But what we do this with, like running storage platforms in Kubernetes and things like that. Very similar use case is that you give your pod a node selector. And so you label the node with the host storage, and then you give your pod a node selector, and then it always lands on the server that has the disk. And so if it's a single instance relational database like MySQL, and you say, look, this MySQL pod, or maybe it's a replica set of 1, so it's always running. Uses a node selector, always lands on a particular host. For distributed systems like you wanted to do Mongo or Cassandra or
Elasticsearch maybe,
or Elasticsearch on something like this, where those distributed systems all follow sort of the same pattern, where every node uses a local disk, and then they expose all the storage via some sort of federated API. What you can then do is have a replica set of 1 for every node. So if I'm trying to do a 10-node, say, Cassandra cluster, then I have 10 replica sets, each with their own node selector.
Yeah. So So we have actually done all those, and we want to move away from that because that makes it very difficult to like do something like that works on like Google Cloud, but then doesn't work on like to go somewhere else. So my I guess it's not necessarily like a proposal, but more like we just want to make it bring it up so that once the local storage proposal is becomes available, this particular use case is supported, so that the stateful sets can be do this. Yeah.
Right, and that's what Michelle's proposal will do.
Hi, are you looking? This is Chakri. Are you looking for a short-term solution, or you want to wait out for the local storage?
If there is a short-term solution, that will be great. But I mean, because I mean, I
So,
don't know when.
actually,
So when the
today there is
local storage will be available? Is there like a timeline, like 3 months or 6 months? Like how long are we looking at?
Local storage is
that's I
targeted
think more.
for alpha in 1.7, which is roughly 3 months out. But go ahead, Chakra. You said you might have a better short-term solution.
Yes, actually, you can replace the scheduler with your own scheduler. That's one way, and which will have the knowledge about your local storage, which can pick the node for you when you do the scheduling decisions. So that means you can off-band maintain your like.
Yeah, so I guess that's what I'm really planning. I mean, if you look at the other link that I have in the external provisioner repo, the bug that I filed, I guess that's the sort of route I'm trying to actually
Which can
basically
make it a
apply now.
little bit more dynamic than the node selector.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. I think.
And suddenly your voice is very low.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so it sounds like there are short-term workarounds. They're not ideal. There's a lot of work to be done. There are better long-term solutions coming down the line. If you want to be involved with those, reach out to Michelle.
Give me a minute. I think I have something with my
Hey, Chakri, I think you're having some connectivity issues, dude, where there's a lag and stuff.
Let's move on to the next item. Thomas, snapshots, next steps. Are you on the line, Thomas?
Yes, I am. Hello. Basically, I've been asked by Steve Watt to make sure that the proposal is progressing towards merging to the upstream. The proposal document itself is still not public. But it says that it should be made public today. I don't know if Jing is in the call. If not, then I would ask her to make the document publicly accessible, and I would like to also suggest that if it would be possible for people who are interested in the feature and in the proposal, if we could meet like more often, more frequently, once, twice a week. I will send some doodle suggestion, and we could discuss and make sure that the proposal is really moving towards merging. So that's all. I was hoping that Jing would be in the call, but
this is Serge, and I'm totally ready to work with you on that. Once twice a week is perfect.
Could you please repeat that? I didn't catch it. Twice a week is better?
Up to you. Let's start with some time and see.
Yeah. I will send an email to SIG Storage, and we can agree on some time that would suit people who are interested in this. This is like announcement that I would like to help with that, if possible. So that's all from me.
All right, cool. Thank you for that update. So keep an eye out for an email from Thomas on the SIG Storage mailing list, and if anyone wants to get involved with that effort, feel free to reply to that. Moving on, we have PRs to discuss that need attention. Jan added storage classes V1 and 1.6. Jan, it looks like this was a change that you got in but was reverted because of some GKE issues, and now you'd like to push it in again.
Yes, exactly.
So I think it's a big change. So we might get pushback from the release folks. What if this doesn't get in? What will not work?
Well, basically everything will work, but we exposed V1 API, but internally we will use the beta API. It's the only change.
Okay. So internally, we're going to be using the beta.
Yeah.
So I think that's okay to not get in for 1.6. Would it be okay to get that in for 1.61?
Well, it's kind of weird because we export the API, but we don't even have end-to-end tests for the API.
Yeah, I completely agree. It sucks, but we have 1 week left until code freeze, or sorry, until release, and we are in code freeze. and trying to get this past the release folks is going to be difficult. So unless we have a major driver, I say let's
I
just.
understand. Well, the PR is open for 2 weeks almost.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, we were in code freeze for that period, so.
Yeah, I know. Well, it can slip to 1.6.1. I don't see a problem with that, but still, I would like it in as soon as possible.
Okay, cool. Let's.
I have one possible suggestion. Would it be possible just to have the tests call the V1 APIs? I think if we can argue that this change is only changing tests and improving the test coverage, then they might accept that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's a good idea.
But maybe we should check with them first before we go through this effort.
Okay, I can do the PR tomorrow and we will see what they say.
Michelle, do you want to reach out to Dan and see if he'd be okay with that?
Okay, yeah, I'll reach out to him first. That way you won't, to see if he will approve that PR if we did that.
Cool, sounds good.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks, Sean. Thanks, Michelle. Next up, Brad posted an item for attached detached fixes for 1.6Z. Brad, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So Tomasz has been working on a PR to support restart of the attached detached controller. Right now, if it restarts, it loses the node states, which leads to some pretty awkward problems. We were trying to get this in for 1.6, but it was too big of a PR with too many issues to actually get merged in time. And we've talked about doing this for 1.6.z. Is this something we want to consider? And if so, what's the next steps to do that?
So I remember taking a look at this PR. I think it's definitely something that we want. It's too late for 1.60. It's definitely not a bug fix, or it's too large to be considered a bug fix. So let's target it for 1.61. Jing, I, and Michelle will start taking a look at the PR. Anybody else who's interested in reviewing it should take a look at it as well, and we'll target 1.61 for it.
Yes, just one more note. It's Tomasz speaking. I'm just writing some better unit tests so we can eventually catch possible problems with the PR. But I'm quite confident about the latest version. I think it's much better than what was there originally. So
cool. Sounds good. More tests, the better.
Do you know any the logistics on 1.6z? Is that something that
what do you mean logistics?
What do we have to have the reviews done by? When does it have to be merged?
So after 1.60 is cut, the point releases 1.61, 1.62 or I guess they're called patch releases, are cut basically as needed. In general, it's anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks cadence. So it's kind of a rolling train. You can grab whichever one works best for you. We're going to try for 1.61. If we miss that, we could always do 1.62. No big deal.
Okay.
So at worst, it would be about 4 weeks, but usually it's faster than that.
What about merging this into master right now?
Right now, master is on code freeze because of 1.60. Right. Code freeze is going to be lifted at some point between now and Wednesday when the release is supposed to happen. Once it's lifted, then absolutely this should be able to get merged to master once it's code reviewed. And then you can cherry pick it to the 1.60 branch after 1.60 is cut.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping we could do, is get this in master as soon as it opens up and then, backport it to 1.61 so that we're not trying to backport something weird all the time.
Makes sense. Cool. We'll keep that on the burner. All right. I'm going to switch up a couple of these items. Next up, I would like to talk about container storage interface. I posted a link there to a preliminary doc in the agenda. So the idea here is a few weeks ago, a bunch of folks from Kubernetes, Docker, Mesos, and Cloud Foundry got together to try to define what we all think a standard container storage interface would look like. And the idea behind this, if you look at our number one goal, is that a storage plugin author should be able to write one plugin, preferably a container, that just works across all container orchestration systems. That's a pretty grand goal, but I think one of the major feedbacks we've gotten from a lot of storage vendors is that they have to go in and write custom plugins for every one of these systems. Sometimes it's in tree, sometimes it's out of tree, and it's a pain. And really, they should be able to just do the work once and have it work everywhere. And so to try to achieve this vision, we first just got all the cluster orchestration systems together, decided if this is something we want to do, and folks decided that this is what this is something that everybody wants to do. It's beneficial for both storage vendors, for cluster orchestrators, and for users. Then it's a question of how we're going to make that happen. This design doc is an attempt to try to converge on that answer. So far, what we're proposing is trying to limit what that trying to limit it to what the interface should be. What is it that we absolutely would need from a storage provider? And then the minimal amount of implementation dictation required to implement that. And so what that looks like at the moment is we're thinking about some sort of long-running container that will expose a REST API that it takes the following commands: create, delete, attach, detach, publish, unpublish, and a few others. And so the idea here is that we don't dictate how you are going to deploy the containers or anything like that. That's up to the cluster orchestrator to decide. We don't, try to, we're going to try to minimize the interface as much as possible. And so if folks are interested, we could go over some of this doc, or I'll just open it up to questions now. What do you guys think? Do you guys want to just do a quick overview of the doc, or does anyone have any questions?
I guess the first question I have is, does it just focus on volume plugins, but also provisioning? Like if you broke out the operations like mount, unmount, attach, detach, create, delete, and then maybe snapshot, replicate, other day two operations, like how far along those lines does it go? Yeah, so the idea is to try to encompass everything that a cluster orchestration system would need from a storage provider. And so that does include dynamic provisioning and deprovisioning of volumes. It does include attach, detach, and it does include mount, unmount, which we're renaming to publish, unpublish, because mount, unmount is very overloaded, and those steps could be could encompass a lot more things than just mounting and unmounting.
Well, I appreciate the intro, but I think I'm going to need more time. Maybe
Absolutely.
Plan on a more detailed dive into this at the face-to-face.
The idea here is this is very, very much a draft. We wanted to make sure that all the cluster orchestration systems were on the same page to begin with, and then open it up for comment and then see if we could all converge on an agreed upon design. So
okay.
Nothing here is final yet.
I'll go away because just in the last couple days, Mesos just published their own version of a proposal as well. And
it should be the same exact doc. We've been working together.
Okay, it isn't, but
okay.
Maybe it's at a different level because they're even talking about how it ties into some of the higher level functions.
I see.
Inside Mesos, but
okay.
What I want to do is kind of an audit of, whether there's any differences or gaps, and even compare it to the Dell EMC's lib storage and what's going on there. But yeah, I'd like to have a few days to look it over, and then I definitely want to cover it in detail at that face-to-face.
Mm-hmm.
And the use of the grpsee syntax is just to do the specification, not necessarily an implementation detail?
So it's an open question at this point. We've been thinking about whether to enforce grpc as the standard interface that the containers must expose. The idea here is, on the one hand, if you want to have this ideal of a storage provider just gives you a single container and it just works, then the interface that it exposes, the REST API, should be consistent, so that you don't have to have 4 or 5 different flavors of the same container. On the other hand, it is an implementation detail, and it may be something that we want to leave open and let storage providers and cluster orchestrators decide. That could cause fragmentation. Pros and cons on both sides. Haven't really finalized that yet.
Okay.
We're using grpc just as a mechanism to write down what the interface should look like, but you could swap that out with JSON or something else if you really wanted to.
All right.
Saad, for feedback on this document, should we just add comments to the document? Is there another meeting scheduled? Or
yeah, no, just add comments to this document, and that'll be the central place to start organizing feedback.
All right. And is there like a plan to involve the storage providers in a future meeting with the orchestrators?
So I think there's going to be one more meeting between the cluster orchestrators probably in the next couple weeks or so. And then after that, the plan is to start getting representatives from various storage vendors involved in the discussions as well.
So this is Serge.
Yes.
So for things like, for the future plans, like replication specifically, that's on my plate.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see that interacts with this?
So at this point, we want the interface to be covering everything that we currently have. But we definitely need to consider expanding the API in the future. And so the exact details of how to do API versioning haven't been defined yet, but the idea would be that this is a versioned API and that you could expand it in the future to encompass new functionality like replication and snapshots and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very important for this to be long living.
Yep.
Because we have snapshots coming, and that's definitely not covered right now. Replication, right. And who knows what else.
Yeah, we definitely want to make sure that it is flexible enough to add things in the future, but start off with something minimal that will be sufficient to get us off the ground.
Okay, and I just suggest that we should put some language in the document to that effect.
Okay, cool.
Saad, Hemant here. So I was just looking at like the publish unpublish operations that happen on the node. It sounds like we're considering a RESTful service or something like a service. So how do we deal with like services that has to, like the operations that has to run on the node and cannot be centralized?
Yeah. So in this doc right now, it's not very clear, but one thing that we want to make clear is that some subset of these operations will only be able to be executed on the node. Other operations could be executed either from the node or from a master machine. In particular, publish, unpublish, get node ID, and probe are all operations that can only be executed from node machines. The remaining operations should be able to be executed by either node or master machines.
Okay.
Hey, Saad, this is Venkat from Portworx. Hey, the CSI doc is great, but when you guys say, you're doing this along the orchestrators, and I see the EMC scaler, your product name there in the sample workflows, it doesn't really talk about democracy or,
No,
so
this is not an exhaustive list at all. This is just a starting point. So feel free to add storage systems there.
Yeah, what we don't want to do is to take like one implementation and just, back ourselves into that. We want to make sure it's
absolutely. No, I completely agree. We want this to be a fair, open, and transparent process. So the part of the reasoning for only including the orchestration systems in the initial conversation was to prevent this kind of biasing from storage vendors. Storage vendors obviously all have a vested interest in promoting their own solution. And what we wanted to do was first not have those voices involved and focus just on what would be best for end users and what the cluster orchestration systems agree on. Once we have that, then the idea is to open it up to storage vendors, because obviously storage vendors have a lot more experience in this space, and let them help shape what this is going to look like. And so we're getting to that point now.
No, absolutely, and thanks for clarifying that. In fact, more than I don't want to sound too altruistic here, but more than trying to push respective solutions, we want to be able to work with the orchestrators to get information that we generally can't get, like to be application aware, get hints about placements and all that. So, I would rather not want the spec to degrade into something like a CRUD operation, how to create snaps and delete snaps. Then it just gets boring. That's what, we can just go back to what SNIA did with SIM, if you really want that, right? I mean, we have to get beyond that and, make it truly converged. And that's where the direction I'd like to see.
Okay, that would be good feedback once we get the ball rolling on this.
Yeah, I think another way of framing this is like, so just to let you know, the Ceph RBD is there, but this is the first time, and I'm from Red Hat, first time I've seen this doc, so I didn't add it to anything.
No, yeah, this is an incomplete list. It's what are the existing volume plugins that exist, and we want to make sure that they continue to work through this interface.
So one other thing just to add though, it's a fairly common pattern just with large open source communities, just for expediency, for a bunch of folks, like a small quorum of 3 or 4 people that are cooking up an idea for a proposal to get together and bounce it amongst themselves till they've got something that they think is worthwhile. And then they open it up for public discussion. So I would say this is still in proposal phase. This isn't like Saad's this is the final form. I think he's just saying, hey, we had a few of us, we put this together, we looked at it together and ironed out some of the kinks just so that it saved time when we open it up more broadly.
Yeah, and just for you Portworx guys who might have been offended to be left out, I'm with Dell EMC, and I didn't see this document myself until a couple minutes ago. So I'm not complaining that the scale I mentioned, but I didn't participate in this either. So I think it's still a level playing field going on here from what I can see.
No, absolutely. I was just trying to, make sure that we all agree to that. But hey, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. We're looking forward to meeting you in the face-to-face. Thanks for hosting that.
Cool. Any other questions or comments?
Is this still to be decided? What's the relationship for this proposal with reference to out-of-tree volume plugin and Flex?
Yeah. So as you know, Flex is currently being iterated for 1.6 to include the attacher detacher interface that we have internally for Kubernetes. That's going to be a breaking change for existing drivers of Flex. They're going to be needed. They need to be updated for 1.6. Moving forward for out of tree, what we're thinking is that this is going to be our driver for out of tree. The interface, once it's agreed upon, then it's up to the cluster orchestrators to decide how they're going to implement it. So for us in Kubernetes, we're going to need to decide whether this is going to be an iteration of Flex, whether it's going to be a new plugin, we could call it Flex 2, we could call it something else, or whether it's something that we're going to bake into a lower layer of the storage stack where it's not a volume plugin, but it's something that the Kubernetes storage stack natively understands. And that is an open discussion. We haven't gotten to the point of Kubernetes implementation yet.
So Saad, who was in that meeting? Kubernetes, Mesos, and who else?
Kubernetes, Mesos, Cloud Foundry, and Docker.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have a release targeted for this? I mean, this is like
no
1.9 type of stuff.
There's no release targeted for this. It's going to be ready when it's ready. We all have, I think all the cloud orchestration systems have different release schedules and cadences. So we're just going to try and see if we could converge on this as soon as possible to something that we agree on, get storage vendor input. Once we have something that's final, we're going to publish it, hopefully have the CNCF pick it up as the de facto container storage interface. And once that's defined, then we can start talking about implementation. Implementation will be up to each one of the cluster orchestration systems to figure out how it works in their system. All right. Any other questions?
Do you have a deadline for feedback? Do you want feedback by 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks, or just?
Within the next couple weeks would be great, or within the next week. But I think we're going to open it up to a wider audience, or start incorporating storage vendors in meetings probably within 2 to 4 weeks. And at that point, that'll probably be a better avenue to get your voice heard if you're interested.
Okay.
But for you, Brad, just you could start commenting on the doc immediately.
Okay, thanks.
All right. If there's no other questions, we can move on to the next item on the agenda. Next item is KubeCon EU. It's coming up in 2 weeks. There is a list in the agenda of who's attending. Looks like from the Google side, it'll be me and Michael Rubin. Jan is going from Red Hat. Sarge will also be there. If anybody else is attending, please let us know and we'll add you to this agenda doc.
Can we arrange some meeting or dinner or something?
That would be great. There's no face-to-face because a lot of folks from this group are not going to be there. But
sure.
just having an informal dinner or something would be great. I'll take a note to do that.
Yeah, I think Michael Ferranti from Portworx will also be joining there. I can update.
Cool. And could you fill in his name in the agenda?
Thank you.
And just to be clear, this is not going to be a face-to-face meeting. This is just going to be an informal get-together.
Definitely.
And speaking of face-to-face, the next item on the agenda is a face-to-face meeting in Santa Clara on April 5th, which is the current proposal. Steve, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, if you could put your name down, even if it's an educated guess as to whether you'd come, just so we can get the room reserved. We've got a number of choices there, and I just want to get one, in a round format appropriate for discussion that will match our group size. Also, I tentatively allowed for it to extend into a second day, but there's a spot on that document in the link to put proposed agenda items, and we can call it as we see it. I personally am traveling in, and since I thought we'd have a dinner that evening, I'll be staying the night anyway. So maybe we can resolve within the next week whether we think we need a second day.
I think in the past we've discovered one day has been too short. Having 2 days back-to-back has been very useful. I would suggest 2 days if possible.
Okay, I'll go ahead and book rooms for 2 then, and
okay.
We'll see what happens.
Is the date right on this? I've heard talk that since Saad wasn't going to be able to make this date, that they might push it out.
I mean, I can't make it during that week, but it sounds like a lot of other folks, it's going to be harder for them.
Yeah, some of us had DockerCon coming up later that month too, so I think we discussed before some of the options, and pretty much everything in the month had some people who would have to miss.
Yeah. I can try to dial in if possible. Otherwise, Michael or Tim can represent Google.
Well, I mean, we have out-of-tree volume plugin and provisioners, which is basically the CSI, CNI CSI document?
CSI.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have adequate representation there to discuss it. I mean, Saad, this is kind of your baby now, right? Like, it sounds like you have the.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I really wish I could be there. But like, if this is the only time that we can make work, then.
Why is it the only time we can make it work? This is the third face-to-face that Saad hasn't been at.
Second.
Third. Or no, the first one you were at. No, you weren't at.
First two I was there. First two I was there. Third one I wasn't there. This is the fourth one.
But face-to-face?
Yeah. Our face-to-faces used to be very tiny.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
It used to be us and
the last two. So.
But yeah, I mean, if we can modify the date at all, that would be wonderful. But don't hold it up on me.
I feel like the out-of-tree plugin thing is such a big deal, and Saad is so deep in it with Chakri that I'm wondering if that really could sort of trump some flexibility here.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is the out-of-tree probably is going to need more than just this meeting anyway, and this would almost be an intro because it's also kind of early, right? I mean, if we're talking about this thing just being opened up for storage providers in 3 weeks, that's about when this meeting is going to occur. So I would view this as sort of very intro level talk about CSI.
Say that again?
Well, I think with the timing, discussing the CSI draft that we just saw.
Yes.
And somebody threw out that, at this stage, it's still being discussed amongst the orchestrators and maybe even changed a bit. This face-to-face is going to come down pretty much aligned with the first exposure of this to the storage providers. So that being said, I think that it'll give us a chance to get an intro presentation on what was there, what the thought process was. But in terms of a real thorough, call it negotiated discussion, I think that this is going to have to bleed into follow-up meetings. There's no way in the time frame we're not going to have additional meetings to talk about this. So it's not like this is going to be the only one.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, my flexibility during that week, I could probably move it within that week, but I think, Saad, if I remember correctly, you were going on vacation kind of that whole slot anyway.
Yep.
And then once it gets into the next meeting, at least for us, but I suspect a lot of others, DockerCon comes up in mid-April, and I suspect a lot of the group has conflicts with that.
Well, wait a minute. You suspect the group has conflicts with the week after that because is that DockerCon or something? Or
right, DockerCon actually starts on the Sunday, but if people have speaking slots and things like that at DockerCon, you need some time for prep. And anyway, for speaking for the Dell EMC team, the next 2 weeks after that aren't going to work for us.
Yeah, I know. We just got off next, and we got KubeCon, so we're dealing with that sort of same crunch here. There's too many conferences and conventions, and they never stop.
Yeah.
It's like, when do we get to work?
The holidays when everybody wants to take time off because that's when the conference is.
I think I'd feel more comfortable with this can we have, so then I guess, yeah, maybe we can do it that way where we have an intro to the out-of-tree provisioning stuff and Chakri can talk about Flex and then, I guess I can present Saad's work from CSI and then we make sure that we schedule a follow-up shortly after the DockerCon to talk about things more in depth. As long as we don't, in the face-to-face SIG, try to get too deep and instead make this a informational where we are status update.
Right. That's kind of how I see it going down anyway, because I'm going to want the intro and then go back and do at least a couple weeks of thought and planning, in terms of a response. I'm not unlikely to be prepared 1 minute after this intro to go into some deep dive.
Just to lay things out right, so we're talking about April 5th to 6th. DockerCon is April 17th to 20th. So it's 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
So is there any possibility of just doing us the following week? So we're talking something like April 11th to 12th instead?
That would work for me.
There might be in terms of us hosting it, but I'm going to have to check. I can't commit to it on the phone or on the call here.
For anyone that's planning on attending, is April 11th to the 12th problematic for anyone?
10th to the 12th. We're just thinking
11 and 12.
11 and 12.
We still don't. We don't want this to be like 4 days, right?
No, it'll be 2 days, 11 and 12.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do one of those days.
So, Mike, it's literally 1 week out. So, Saad would be able to attend.
Yeah.
It's the same 2-day meeting, but just 1 week out from the 5th and the 6th.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me.
Okay, Steve, when do you think you'd be able to verify if those dates would work for you?
Let me see. It's definitely the 11th and 12th you want?
11th and 12th would be perfect for us.
I'll try to contact people today.
Okay.
So,
do you want to send out a message to SIG Storage about that?
Yeah.
Once you have, okay, perfect.
And I'll either confirm we have the flexibility to host on 11 to 12 or not.
Okay.
And you still want to host it, maybe you can find somebody else to host.
Yeah, I mean, Google could definitely host if you guys are unable to. Other than hosting, do the dates work for you in terms of conflict?
I think that I'll have to. I don't have my calendar open in front of me, but I think I could make those. I am going to DockerCon, but it isn't till the 16th.
Okay, so let's preliminarily say 11 and 12. We will await your confirmation whether you're able to host on those dates. If not, then we can go host at Google.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, and Saad, I mean, I presume it's just like, so the 11th and 12th is Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yes.
But there, if Steve comes back and says, I have availability 12, 13, Wednesday, Thursday.
That works as well.
Yeah. So I'm just,
That whole week.
Steve, you have some flexibility there on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like on the 13th we had our Zoom meeting anyway.
Yes. Okay, so we'll take this offline to a mailing list. And any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Have a good day. You get 10 minutes back in your day. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.